Hello, everybody. Welcome to Meta Episode 2. I hope you like that intro, especially the Rotterdam part. That is so funny. This week on the show, we have, of course, myself, and then we got Cats. We have Pig and Rotterdam. How's it going for everybody? Cats, what have you been up to?
Not much. Just chilling.
No?
I tried to make it into top 16 for the Total Biscuit thing. Didn't go too well. I was
I'm sorry.
right now. Well, there's
like
no bonus pool anymore.
You have to be top 16 like before the end of the ladder?
Pretty much. And it was pretty short notice, but it's great. Like, I'm really happy that he's doing it.
Sick.
And it's like the beta season, so I really like that.
Didn't you cast some Dreamhack this weekend too?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you've
Yeah.
actually been doing a lot of stuff, not just chilling. Okay, thank you, Cats.
Yeah.
Pig, what has been up, man?
Not much, man. Just practicing way too much StarCraft, which is never a bad thing.
I don't think there's anything such as too much practice, Pig. And, of course, Rotterdam, what have you been up to?
Unlike those boys, I've mostly just been watching a lot of StarCraft. Ever since I've been on my sick ladder losing streak, I'm just kind of staying away from it, man. I actually went 4 wins and 21 losses in one day. Like, that really cuts you.
I have had days like that. Those are terrible. I
That
feel
cut-
for you.
Yeah, that cuts you pretty deep. So other than that, like even today, it's pretty sick how you just wake up at 7 a.m. over here in Pacific, then WCS EU starts. You watch that for 6 hours, and then you have a couple of hours of free time in the afternoon, and then WCS and A starts. It's just all day, every day StarCraft.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yes,
YOLO.
Of course, don't forget WCS Korea, the most important one. Come on.
I wouldn't dare.
All right, well, let's go ahead and start talking about some stuff. I actually want to start off. Pig, you wrote a blog about being a foreigner in Heart of the Swarm, and we'll go ahead and post that in the chat so people can take a look-see if they want. But can you go ahead and just summarize it real quick for people so we can talk about it?
Yeah, man. I mean, I just kind of was meant to be writing a blog about an event I'd been to, and I kind of just sat down and started writing out my thoughts about what's going on at the moment. What ended up coming out was me just kind of rambling a little bit about being a foreigner right now. I mean, HOTS has just come out. The skill ceiling's a lot higher, especially for Zerg players. You can't just build spine crawlers and infestors all game anymore. You've got just this massive skill ceiling. You've got Kesper coming in. So you've kind of got this horde of Korean pro gamers right now. And you've got WCS moving away from this grassroots focus more to this big global focus where the top Korean players are going to be dominating. So it's kind of this time where I think foreign players we're in this somewhat comfortable situation for a while. I mean, the last few years, it started off a lot of American tournaments, a lot of European tournaments with maybe 1 or 2 Koreans. And now it's kind of moved to a position where there's a lot more competition. Foreigners need to either step up or they're kind of going to be pushed out of being relevant competitively. And, maybe there's going to be more people moving to media or content, but it's just kind of this scary time with a lot of change. And I think everyone really needs to step up right now.
Now, there is a lot to tackle from that blog to talk about, but I think we have the perfect set of people to start going over that because, for instance, of course, Cats, you're still an active pro gamer, very good level, but you do a lot of kind of content and stuff with your stream. And then, of course, Rotterdam, you're a former pro gamer. You became of course, a commentator for NASL, one of my favorites.
No.
And so what are your guys' thoughts? Just broad-based stuff to start with. Cats, what do you think about this? The stepping up versus becoming a content creator. How do you balance that? What do you think?
Well, I agree with Pig. Everyone needs to step up or we're all going to die. I don't know that I'm so much of a content creator. I do play 8 to 10 hours a day still. But
Well, I mean more
I
the actual balance of it. You stream a lot. Of course, your practice is going to be good on stream, but is it as good without the stream? But also, you have to make money, and it's a hard place for foreigners right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'm not sure that is that what the point? I don't know if Pig was that what you meant, Pig? Balance things out, or basically.
Like I said, when I started writing it, I didn't really have a clear goal, but that's definitely part of it. Part of it is towards the end, I kind of semi-paraphrase quoted what you said a while back about let's see a North American player try and eat and breathe StarCraft, and let's see how quickly they starve. And that was a really, really nice line that you said, which kind of bounced all around the internet, and I think it kind of resounded with everyone. And I think my final comment in the blog was something like, look, you know, it's time for me to step up. I'm like determined to be the best I can. I don't know how far I'll make it, but if I have to starve, you know, that's what I'm going to have to go through. And it's not the most positive outlook at the end of that blog that I wrote. But it's kind of like, I'm determined and I'm going to go really far. But for like a lot of people, is that even possible? And for me personally, it is a battle kind of balancing content creation with practice. So yeah, how do you kind of feel you balance that out, man? I mean, you manage a team as well, so.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. I make money from streaming, a lot of money, or not a lot of money, but a lot more money than most people could make from streaming. So it's you know, like Dan said, like I am streaming. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am streaming, and like, how do I balance it out? But really, I don't feel like it's much worse practice when I'm streaming because I'm just doing my thing. Anyways, I'd be doing almost the exact same thing. It may be worse for like if I'm going to a tournament and my opponent starts studying me, or you know, like sometimes there's like that need that you feel to like maybe put up a little bit of a show. Um, you know, otherwise it's like kind of weird, and you're like, oh shit, I've been quiet for 2 hours, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I just it just happens. So I don't mind it too much. But in terms of other people, I think that that you make a good point, Pig, and that not just players need to step up, but organizations and teams have the bigger what's the word I'm looking for here? They get
They've
the
got the bigger
part.
responsibility to kind of step
Yeah.
up and help promote the players and kind of take some of the burden off their back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like you, Pig.
Oh,
He's a
I like
likable
you
guy.
too, man.
Well, speaking of that, Rotterdam, you and Mr. Bitter have been somewhat vocal on those points.
Mostly bitter, man. I've
Yeah.
behaved.
Well, you two go together, you know, like Tastes can't say something without me being involved, so you're the same.
Yeah, I back up everything Ben says.
Okay, but what are your thoughts on that? Like, actually, the promotion of the players and that type of thing? Because we've seen some of that from NASL. Like, I was just watching you guys the other day, and I saw a sick commercial with cats in it. Man, I was like, ooh, that's
Yeah,
that's
no,
kind of sexy.
it's something that Ben has been standing for a long time, and he says it in pretty much every single interview. He's like, it's the task of the tournament organizers that the eyes are going to be on the players. Give us some B-roll. Give us, you know, if you have players and you know that they're going to be there, you invite 8 players or 16 players to an offline final. Just like let them all come one day earlier. Take them out to the city. You know, do something fun with them. Go to a restaurant, and you have some really unique footage which you can play throughout your event while there is downtime between series. And this also gives the people at home something to identify with. It's like, hey, look at these guys in their own natural environment. Now this is actually not thank you, my sponsors, la 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 la, but this is actually just the guys hanging out. And that kind of stuff actually makes players a lot more popular as well. But just to touch more on this subject overall, I think what Pig says is really interesting, but there are so many different ways to look at it. And I've actually, like, we had Alex Garfield on the Pulse a little while ago, and I asked him a question. It's like, hey, Alex, do you think that your players are that comfortable that they actually don't really have the ultimate desire to win anymore because they don't really need to win? And like, I would never say something bad about the Muslim because like the Muslim is a really, really good friend of mine. He's my buddy. We live together. But in some ways, I always felt that Ben has the potential to win tournaments. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that he has that skill level. But on a certain moment, I was like, started to figure out, like, or at least think, like, maybe Ben is completely satisfied with how everything is going right now. You know, he's on EG, he gets a nice salary, his stream goes amazing. Like, he probably makes more money in a weekend streaming than he would going to the average tournament unless he places top 3. Now, I know this is not the case. I know Ben is still full of ambitions, and I know he still wants to show the world that he can be one of the best foreigners in the world. But it is a very realistic question. Like, isn't even winning tournaments is one thing, but at the end of the day, only so many people go away with a really nice paycheck. Look at Dreamhack, for instance, last weekend. This tournament was so freaking stacked. But if you finished 4th place, what did you get? Okay, let's say 5th to 8th, you get $1,500. That is really good, but that's not something that goes up against like a month of streaming if you're a very popular streamer, you know. And reaching top 8 Dreamhack is not something you can do every month because that's one hell of an achievement. So it's really hard to say, actually.
No. Well, that's kind of an interesting point that you have. You know, of course, players can't live only off of their streaming money. But do like the higher salaries actually cut into the motivation? Because Pig, you were just saying like you're unbelievably motivated right now, right? You're ready to starve if you need to. And I know being an Australian pro, there's no way you're making a bank right now. You know, you're having probably a very hard time. I'm sure it's hard for you to stream with your internet connection and all that jazz. So what do you think about that? Because for you to hear that, you're probably like, well, no, that's I'm working towards having a nice salary. But do you think that that's something that can demotivate?
I think only to an extent. Like, I think more if there's pressure on the player to spend their time just streaming and stuff. And I mean, it comes down to the sport. It's like you have to stream 30 hours a week, and we want you to do that. And we want you to also do these interviews. We want you to do this and that. I think if that's the focus, and then the team management doesn't really care too much about the tournaments, you know, just go to these 2-3 tournaments a year or whatever, and that's that. Then maybe the player's happy. You know, they're getting their income. They get to play a game. They get to play it in front of thousands of people just on their stream. Maybe. But for me personally, like, I've never been in a situation like that, so I can't really speak to anyone else's motivation. I think even if I was more comfortable, it would just give me more motivation to practice harder because I'd have more time to devote to that rather than content. I mean, for me, I could be making more money by spending more time coaching and doing all sorts of other content-related media things. But I think if you really want to compete, you've got to just balance it so that you're doing just enough to kind of keep you afloat and keep paying the bills, and the rest of your time should be devoted completely to competition.
Like
But,
I find, oh, sorry.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, continue, man.
Like I find this a very interesting discussion in general, the difference between streaming and actually preparing for a tournament. Like oh, so often we still see people stream like 12-hour streams right before their tournaments. It just kind of blows my mind because either you're not showing your real strategies, so basically you're wasting 12 hours of practice time, or you are showing your real strategies and you're just telling everybody at the tournament like, hey, this is how I play, now you can study me. Like I think it was amazing this last weekend that Naniwa came up with 2-3 complete new PvZ openers that no one had freaking seen, no one. And also one of the reasons is because Naniwa does not stream. Like he streams once a year in December, and that's about it. Like he does not stream. And you can really say that that must have helped him, because if Naniwa would have been streaming 8 to 12 hours a day, either he wouldn't have prepared this way the builds as specific as he did, and he wouldn't have executed them as well as he did, or he would have shown those builds already and people would have been aware of it. So
there's a big difference between showing the builds in a tournament like Dreamhack or for a tournament like GSL, though, for example. For GSL, there's a very specific opponent that will be preparing for you. I guess in Dreamhack there is the groups. So I guess when the groups are announced, you should probably stop streaming. But otherwise, let's say it's not Dreamhack, but it's MLG or IM or whatever, then you don't know who you're playing, so you as a player are probably not going to be studying anyone.
No, but it's not necessarily... I don't think it's necessarily about studying, but don't you think that if Nanima would have been streaming 8 hours a day for the last 2 months, that people on Reddit would have been talking about his builds, and his builds would have been much more common among his opponents, whether or not they knew in advance they were going to play Nani? Because I have not seen those builds from Nanima yet. I spoke with him already. He's like, yeah, those are my own creations. I think that's fucking cool. Yeah. And no one knew about it, and you can say what you want, but if Nanima would have been streaming all the time, I think eventually people would have started talking about these openers, and 1 or 2 people would have definitely started analyzing it, putting it on Team Liquid strategy forum, etc.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, he even actually used some of those builds like about a year ago, back in GSL for Stongregu, and he just hasn't used them since.
Yeah,
the Zealot pressure, which he used to just kill sort of, yeah. That one he's used before, but because he never streams, hasn't used it since then. People just completely forget that those builds even exist. So,
yeah. I think Heart of the Storm makes them a lot better too with the Mothership Core. So
totally.
I think that probably is like, what can I do with this? This old build seems pretty good. But back onto your topic about Pig, you were saying about like, is it like time for you to starve? You're playing so much. Cats, you're actually kind of making a situation to try to help the foreigner pro gamers by trying to make that house. Congrats, by the way. I saw your charity stream did really well. But by trying to make that house, you're trying to get it so that all the foreigners can spend basically all their time practicing for that. And Rotterdam, I know that you were kind of involved with that house out in California. So
yes,
I want to hear like what your thoughts on having the house in America and how that helps the players or doesn't help the players and the problems and stuff, as opposed to Cats, what your actual plans are and, you know, that type of stuff.
I think a house in the US can definitely still be useful. Like we've discussed team houses a lot in the past, I think. But one thing that is very, very, very important is just that there are strict rules, and it doesn't have to be like in a Korean team house where you say you wake up at 8 p.m. and then you or 8 p.m. would be bad, 8 a.m. and then you eat breakfast and then you're gonna practice for 6 hours and then you have 30-minute break. But there really has to be some sort of guideline to follow. It cannot be just six guys living on their own, kind of doing their own thing, streaming some ladder, waking up whenever they please, and just like really not interacting with each other. Because then, in my opinion, at the end of the day, it's useless. People always say like, "Oh yeah, it's so motivating to be around other players in a house, and I'm gonna practice so much more." At the end of the day, there is not a reason to be in a team house because you can also just sit at home and also practice. And if you just play ladder, you might as well play ladder from home. I definitely think a team house in the US can work, and I think Katz already has some experience with it. So I'm pretty sure he's going to run it the right way. And then, despite not perhaps the ultimate practice, because I guess the best practice is still in Korea, I still think it can be very, very useful. But if I learned one thing from the guys that I've seen here in this house and the way that they took the opportunity and kind of the chance that Mr. Bitter gave to them, because he did really did give them like a good chance. It is pretty hard to work. There has to be some sort of rule, and you can basically say either there has to be a coach or there at least has to be someone really in charge and say, hey, this is how it's gonna go, and rules are rules, and if you don't obey, then you can go home.
Cats?
Yeah, we discussed having a coach. I think that's pretty important too, because like I'll be there, but realistically, I'm not a great authority figure, because like they're all my friends as well. So so it's hard to tell them anything without sounding like a dick. And
yeah, but I think that's something that you shouldn't be afraid of, though. Like one of the first meetings, like when Mr. Bitter started this house, the Razor House, but in my eyes it was more the Mr. Bitter House because I know how much he paid, and that's insane. Like he put so much of his own money in it. One of the first meetings he had with the guys back then, we had one guy from Denmark. His name is Defex. Really well in the CSL, so it wasn't for nothing. A guy from Canada called J-Mac. We had Beastie Cutie, and we had Gigs, North American Zerg player. And one of the first meetings, Ben already said, it's like, all right, guys, this is how it's going to be it. If you're looking for a friend, you can talk with Kevin. He's pretty nice. I am not your friend. I want you guys to get shit done. And I'm not here to be your friend. I give you guys a chance to practice. I want to see you practice, and that's it.
yeah, but I am their friend.
Yeah, but...
No, I get what you're saying. It's just I don't want to put myself in that position. But we have talked about what you're talking about. What we're planning to do is if we don't get a coach, we'll do like weekly service because Rob, one of our content producers, is going to be there as well. He's going to live there, so he'll run like weekly service to make sure that everyone's doing things accordingly. And if someone's not, then they'll have to leave the house, whether it's either like me or Drury or whoever else. So I think that's a pretty good way to keep people in place. The other idea that we have is that Sage, when he comes over, he's going to be like the team captain because he has the most experience with Korean houses. So we'll try to replicate a Korean house, but I'm not sure how we're going to run the schedules and if we're going to have everyone waking up at the same time and all that stuff. But we definitely want to get in the most practice that we can in like 8 hours a day and all that stuff at the very least. So I think it'll go great. I think we're setting the bar pretty high for expectations out of the house, and we're also making it in San Francisco, so the ping to Korea server is the best possible out of the US at least.
Pig, do you think that this is like the best way for foreigners to step up is things like what Mr. Bitter did and what Katz is doing right now?
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, ultimately, the issues players have are so many in the foreign scene, and it's part of. Actually, I tuned in last week, and you guys were talking about how the metagame seems to evolve a bit slower in the foreign scene. Though I remember Katz disagreed with that, but I feel it kind of does because players just take so much longer to figure out the weaknesses in their strategies because it's a strategy game and it is really hard to see the weaknesses in your builds as a pro player, and you can spend time watching replays and things, but when you're in a house with people of all different races playing at the highest level, people can just look at your build and just be like, I could kill you with this. You have to worry about this. Hey, you reacted to that weird. And your development gets sped up so much faster. So you've got that. You've also got obviously, when people are living together, there's a motivating factor, and people are supported. I mean, that's part of why the Korean scene does develop so well. You've got obviously the culture and everything's so set up, but once these kids, they aren't usually better than the North American pros at all when they first join these teams. They're usually maybe mid to high master on Korea, but they've shown improvement and a lot of dedication. And they come into these houses and then they just train all day. They've got coaches and people helping them out, and they just improve so bloody quickly that it's just incredible. So I think that's definitely what the foreign scene needs to step up their game.
Okay. So overall, are we like optimistic or pessimistic about, the state of how foreigners are going to play coming up, right? Because I think everyone kind of agrees that foreigners need to step it up, they need to play harder, or they need to become like a personality or content producer, something like that. Are foreigners overall going to step up? Like, for instance, is the overall level of foreigners compared to Koreans going to go up or down in the coming year or two? What does everyone think on that?
I think it's gonna go down. I mean, I think it's gonna go up in this particular Skype call, but you know,
but overall down.
Well, the gap is going to always increase because you just look at the infrastructure, especially in the Kesper houses. It's gonna get bigger, but that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. I think something which we're gonna see, and it really depends on this whole region lock idea with WCS, is WCS is clearly making itself the top league. It's going to be the absolute top GSL equivalent all around the world, but underneath that, are other organizations going to step in to a certain extent to help raise up kind of the lower and middle class of gamers? Because that's something which is going to be needed, especially if Koreans continue to be allowed to compete in North America and in Europe. It's going to be a really negative outlook unless other organizations step in to pick up kind of these local tournaments, just North America, just Australia, just Europe. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to be looking at a really negative outlook. But either way, there's going to be an increase in the skill gap between Kesper and foreign players, other than the very, very top players like Sase and Naniwa that want to train in Korea. But that's not the worst thing in the world. We're still going to have really exciting tournaments, and our scene will eventually catch up as our infrastructure gets back to that point. So I think 5 years down the track, maybe in StarCraft 3, we'll see foreigners actually be kind of at a similar level. So I think in the long run, it's not too bad.
But okay, I got a question though for Pig. But how does that infrastructure get up there? Like how do you justify anyone investing in that?
That's true. Now. That's actually a really good point. Right. I think WCS is going to has to region lock actually. Yes. If that's going to happen. Because otherwise, pretty much what you've been saying, Katz, in the last month. I think I agree with that, man.
I think I agree with you.
I still don't think that we should be too negative, though. I mean, I think it's safe to say that, yes, some guys in GSL right now, if you look at like the guys, for instance, we're going to see on May 2nd, like those four, is it going to be possible for foreigners to beat them in the near future? And are they going to be even better than the foreigners who will get over time? Will their skill increase quicker? Perhaps yes, but I do not think overall that like any foreigner competition will be excluded at all. I mean, Naniwa's run at Dreamhack was great. You could say maybe it was an incident, but I really don't think it will be like the only miracle foreigner run we're going to see in the next year or something. There are plenty of, like, I think it's too harsh to say foreigners need to step it up. Sure, I mean, some guys might be lazy, but there are also plenty of guys who do really work so hard. And I think it's always kind of hard to just say like, oh, foreigners need to step it up, but these guys do literally pour everything into it. So it's not like every foreigner is lazy or something. That's definitely not the case, I think.
No, not at all. I mean, like, when I'm saying that, I'm not saying we need to step up in terms of stop being lazy. It's meant to be like, you've got to put so much into it beyond 8 hours a day, especially if you're living out of home. If you're not 17 or 18 years old living at home practicing as a pro gamer, because you don't have a team house and stuff, like, you're going to have to put in 9-10 hours a day practice on top of whatever else you're doing. So I don't know. I guess that's my personal outlook is it's going to have to be like that. Also, I think there's kind of a difference. I think Europe is going to keep up a hell of a lot better than the rest of the foreign world because the European scene seems really vibrant and it seems to really support its own players. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, like Sweden and Germany are really good at that.
But like, what does Sweden do to support their national players?
They have Dreamhack there for starters. The
Yeah, but
culture is
like,
just more advanced in terms of gaming.
so you want to
I
say that
think,
it's easy to win money at Dreamhack?
No, I want
I
to say
think
that
but
it's
it's easier to
more.
be a gamer in Sweden.
Why?
I think
it's you.
there's more local
I just
leagues, and I think the sponsorship is generally higher because I've talked to a lot of American pros about the sort of sponsorship they get, and it
also
seems pretty low compared
Uh,
to the European equivalents.
just the way Sweden works, like with the socialist kind of model thingy, you can afford to take a year or two off and not do anything and just game. And it's just a culture that's like much more accepted in Sweden than in other countries, is it not?
I
yeah.
would
I would
say it's
like
more accepted, and
it's
you got to
always
remember
yeah.
the like DreamHack Open. Look how many Swedish players got to play in that, and that's like a
Uh,
big time LAN, and they had chances, and a few of them made some upsets and got pretty far and got some names. So,
I mean,
I mean,
think about every game. Sweden's good at every game.
Yeah, but
Um,
that has a lot to do with the way that the country is because it's always dark over there, so they just play games.
that's part of it too. I mean, add 1+1+1+1, and you have like Sweden doing better than everyone else.
okay, so
Salsa just wrote me on Skype. He said the only reason why Sweden is good is because Sweden is boring as hell, so we can't do anything else than playing games.
you
Which is
know,
basically what I said. The sun never shines.
a lot of the people from America that got good at StarCraft One came from the most boring areas, like Tasteless and Day9 from Kansas, and I came from New Hampshire. It's just like the worst. Like, there's literally nothing to do unless I like to hunt, which I don't. So, I get that. I totally understand. Um, I guess to kind of wrap this discussion a little bit, like an unfair question, like are foreigners going to eventually rise up to where we're like, yeah, no, these foreigners have a pretty good shot of doing well in this tournament? Or is it gonna be like a Warcraft 3 grubby situation where it's like, well, it's either gonna be a Korean, a Chinese, or grubby that wins this tournament?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
what model are we going after in StarCraft 2 right now? What's realistic in the future?
I think the first model, like the Warcraft 3 scenario was really weird. For some reason, Grubby and Todd were just so much better than anyone else. Eventually, we got Creophilus and Hot, and every now and then, like one guy, I think in StarCraft, there will always be 5 to 10 foreigners who are not necessarily better than the Koreans, but you know, those guys say like, hey, he might be my pick for this tournament, or this guy might be my pick.
Mm.
I never think it's just going to be 1 or 2 foreigners. I think we're going to have a bigger group than that.
Okay. Any thoughts, pig or cats?
I think it's up to the teams and the organizations to step it up, and not the players. I think that the players like Pig, like many, like every player that wants to do this for a living. I think, like Rotterdam said, they're not trying to be lazy or anything like that. Like they're even if they put everything that they can and they have, it's sometimes not going to be enough. And like
That's
Pig
for
said,
sure.
we have to build up infrastructure and start growing over time, so that in 5 years we don't have to ask this question and talk like we're less.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that the way things are going right now, the skill gap's gonna increase with a few foreigners always doing good, especially those that move to Korea where all the infrastructure and everything is to practice there. But the hope is that in time, a few years down the line, people start stepping it up, moving close to the root house, moving close to the EJ house, and doing stuff in North America and Europe, and even Australia.
One
Even
day, man,
Australia.
we'll have a tournament down here one day. Yeah, I mean, just to finish up on that whole topic, I just want to say, like, it was a really, like I said, a personal blog to me. It was just kind of like, this is my outlook on the situation. It's kind of scary. There's challenges, and I'm determined to kind of try and overcome them in the current situation. So I think any kind of negativity that comes through in that blog, if some people do pick up on that, I think it's just me accepting the situation as it is right now. And I think everyone's hopeful that there's going to be constantly being changes and improvements. I mean, you look at how much esports has grown in the non-Korean world in the last 5 years, and it's huge. But right at this very moment, I'm just really determined to play harder. And it's not me saying I'm going to starve and players are all not going to be able to feed themselves. But I think it's actually going to be a really, really competitive year. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes.
Oh, all right. Well, that was very... I know, he's great, isn't he? Yeah. Actually, all the Australians, man. Like, I love all the Australians for some reason. They're so great. All right. Good blog, Pig. Very interesting topic that I'm sure we'll always hit on somewhat because it is actually so important, and it is so ridiculously hard for a foreigner to do anything, no matter how hard they practice in the scene, because the Koreans do have such a great infrastructure. But let's go over and jump into some GSL talk. I'll link you guys. We have the round of 16 groups. There's one in particular that we're going to have to say a few words about. Can you guys guess which group that may be?
Group D. Totally Group D.
Okay. Before we get into Group D, which is just so interesting, Rotterdam. That is true. 3 Zergs and a Terran.
I want to know how many Ultralisks are going to be made in that group. Like, that's all I want to know.
A lot, probably. Yeah, I would say a lot. Group C, did anyone watch it last night?
I caught bits of it.
Caught bits?
Yes.
It wasn't the greatest group
I watched about half of it.
Yeah,
Shine is a lot of fun to watch.
He's wild, isn't he? He's just like, he marches the beat of his own drum. But now he's in...
He just chooses every position where a Zerg wants to defend, and he just goes, go attack instead! Every time an army comes at him, he just sends his army the other direction around the map.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is cool. This is cool to watch. Didn't work yesterday, but...
No.
But I think it could work.
The first series between Tasia and Shine, I think, was pretty sloppy from both sides, to be honest.
It was a bit sloppy. Yeah. I really liked SOS First Bomber. That was really nice, I thought.
Yeah,
SOS is like the hero.
With all the hallucinations, that's pretty sick. Like, double mind game.
He's so clever. Oh my god, is he clever.
Let me hallucinate all Colossus so obvious that I'm actually gonna go double robo behind it. Like, that's just next level mind games. It's like, these are fake,
I didn't even think of it like that, because I'm like, he's going Colossus behind hallucinated Colossus. Like, maybe he knew he was near a watchtower and made it or something. I didn't actually notice that.
That's so sick. It's like, all right, I have all these High Templars, so this Colossus is obviously fake, so there's no need for you to make Vikings. And then he has double robo behind it. That's really sick. He's really good player.
He might want to switch over to poker one day, this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about it. Group B. All right, who's happy about this and who's angry about this?
I'm happy.
I have mixed emotions. Group B, like, what? This is supposed to be the top 4 of the tournament, probably.
Yeah. You have mixed emotions because you have to cast the whole tournament. I could just watch Group B.
You're like, all right, it looks like Innovation's the champion. Sick. Yeah. But seriously, that's supposed to be like the top 4. Like, why did they choose each other? Like, Parting, I'm like, okay, you're a showboater. And then Life's like, well, fuck it. Chooses like the scariest TVZ you can see, and then Innovation's like, well, I'm just gonna screw everybody.
Yeah, Innovation is like, well, we're here already. I might as well finish it.
From what they were translating, from what John the Translator was translating, the casters and the GOM representatives were like telling them kind of like what to do or not to do. Kind of, they were like, Parting, you said you were gonna pick Life. Are you gonna follow through, basically, or in brackets, or are you a pussy? You know.
And Parting is like, I ain't no pussy.
Yeah, I'm no pussy. Life. And then they were like, Life, like who are you scared of or something, right? And then Life's like, well, Innovation and Flash, I guess, are the two most scary people. And then Mr. Chung, whatever his name is. What's his name?
Mr.
I
Chang.
feel like Chang. Okay, cool. I felt super racist saying Mr. Chang, but it was the right guess. And he goes, Mr. Chang, they're like, oh, Mr. Chang is pleading that Life doesn't pick Innovation because it's going to be bad, because it's going to be the first forward, like it's going to be the group of death, whatever. And then Life picks Innovation. And then Innovation's like, yeah, fuck it.
He's like, oh, well, this is already too hard. Let's just do it.
pretty much.
Wait. Who else from STX is in this tournament? Because that has to be what Innovation's all about. He's like, all right, I'm going to help my friend win or something because the group is. Who would do this to themselves?
He was just making the hardest possible group. He was like, it's already the group of death. Yeah, they were like encouraging him to pick Flash almost.
Maybe he's just got a really busy month planned, and he figures he'll just win the tournament in the round of 16, and then he can just kind of breeze through the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who was left, but I know Sulky was still there. That's not a much better option, if any at all, than Flash.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, yeah. Outside of that group, I was trying to think of 4 other players in the world that would make a scarier group, and it's impossible.
No, I've actually been really thinking about it. I would say these are probably the top 4 in the world. And the only people I can add are Roro, Leenock, and Rain. Those are the only other players I think are at a similar level to these 4.
I did the same thing. I didn't put Leenock in there, but I did Roro, Rain, and Sulky or SOS. But yeah, I mean, they still don't have the you know.
Oh no, this is the oomph group right here, man. Like, I don't care that Roro won the GSL last season. This is the oomph group. Who comes out of this group? Because I think I already know. I'm pretty sure I already know.
What do you think?
Me. I know.
Out of Group B, okay, Cats, who comes out?
Life and Innovation.
No.
Really?
No.
Chia.
Whoa,
You picked
Rotterdam.
Parting Flash, didn't you?
No, of course I wouldn't pick Parting Flash. What? I'm not crazy.
I think Live and Flash.
Life and Flash.
Yeah, I think Life and Flash as well.
I think you're all
trust him.
crazy.
I think God.
You're all mad.
The league.
Dude, it's Flash in first place, Innovation in second place.
No.
Oh, for sure. Anyone who doesn't think Flash will come out of a group like this, like as soon as I saw the group, because I was at I think I was at Dreamhack and someone's like, did you see Group B? And I'm like, what? And they told me, I'm like, no, it's not. Shut up. So then I checked. And I immediately was like, well, this is like what Flash used to do in StarCraft is get into groups like this and get out of them. So he's getting out of there. He's too fucking good. His TVT's too strong. And then Innovation is like too good, so he's coming in second.
Live is
I'm
too
calling it
good.
right there.
Live
No,
is-
I know,
Live
and so
too
is
good.
Parting. That's the problem here. This is I have issues with this group because why would you do this to me? I actually said that this would be the top 4 once I saw them play in the round of 32, and then they had to do this.
I think. No.
It's the next level. I
Life
thought
and
this good.
Innovation. I'm sticking with that.
That's no man. Flash and Innovation are coming out. Then they'll meet in the finals, and we'll have the rematch. It'll be sick. Go back to GOM TVT. That's the way it's going. Oh man. Okay. Group A. Let's talk about the other groups a little bit because they're full of really good players too.
Yeah.
Group A: Roro, Flying, Yoda, Sulky. What do you guys think?
I think the two
That's a damn
Zergs,
scary group, too.
Sulky and Roro.
I think they're the better players, but
I
Flying
think
is so
so.
unpredictable, and Yoda is really good too. So I don't know. There could be a lot of upsets, but I would say Roro and Sulky are definitely the favorites.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a really, really hard group to call. I think I'd go
Yeah.
Yoda Roro, but Yoda can be a bit up and down, and I don't know how he'd play against Flying, because as you guys said, Flying's really unpredictable. He can do some crazy builds, so... Yeah, I think I'd go with Yoda Roro.
All right. And
Yeah.
wait, Rotterdam, did you say Roro Sulky too?
Yes.
Okay, I have to say Roro Sulky. By the way, is just to throw out a little comparison, is Flying the Protoss Shine?
Yeah, maybe.
Because I can't
Flying
tell what
is
he's
like-
doing. I'm just like, well, now he's doing this, and then he does something else. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, he's kind of up there, for sure, and he's really good too. Like outside of that, so
He's probably even a bit more flexible than Shine, even because Shine's going to build Mutalisks every time that he gets a chance to, so he's a little bit predictable.
Oh. All right, so probably the two Zergs, maybe Yoda. I think we can all agree that Flying is not coming out of this group. Roro will not lose to Flying. There's just
I
no
don't know.
way, right?
That's the thing. Like Roro and Sulky are so solid, right?
Mm.
I don't know, but Flying can beat anyone in that group. I think. I just don't know if he can beat, 2 people or.
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. Flying
All
will
right.
upset someone.
Last group, Group D: Symbol, Su, Kongho, aka Lucera, and Gumiho.
Lame.
Lame? You're
Lame.
a Zerg player.
I think
Who comes
Lucera
out?
is gonna get knocked out for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think Lucera is gonna, or Kangho is gonna make it out.
Yeah.
How's Su's ZVT?
I don't know.
I'm trying to
He was
think.
doing really well like a month ago, and then he kind of just started losing everything.
Yeah.
I think
he's doing really well.
Gumiho should do really well, and I think Symbol is going to do pretty well as well. So probably Gumiho Symbol.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Symbol is playing like pretty godly, and Gumiho is too if you take out that Jadon loss.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rotterdam? You're awfully quiet on the Zerg.
I know. I'm just calculating the amount of mutas in my head so I can make a proper analysis. No, I think actually I agree that Symbol has been playing super good, but somehow I feel it's going to be Su and Gumiho. I don't know why, but that would be my
I could see Su taking him out in ZVZ. Kespa Zergs you can't underestimate.
I think Su and Gumiho are going to advance. I mean, it's pretty nice for Gumiho that he only has to practice one matchup, while the other guys are mostly going to be focused on ZVZ. But of course, in the back of their mind, they're going to be like, might run into that Gumiho guy.
Yeah, I think everyone's just gonna go in the group expecting Gumiho to take first or something.
Yeah. He's so solid right now, which is weird to say about Gumiho because like his style in Wings of Liberty was the opposite of solid. It was like so flashy and cool.
I'm gonna go with Gumiho Lucera.
Gumiho Lucera. Seriously.
Yeah. I like Lucera. It's a hard.
You think Lucera can come through all those ZVZs?
My heart tells me he can.
Well, he could beat Gumiho. It's a possibility. But actually, I think Lucera is the worst equipped Zerg to beat Gumiho because he likes Infestor play, and Gumiho is all about the multitask.
Yeah.
So what is he going to do, Lucera? I'm sorry, buddy.
Was that a ridiculous game on Eklund Waste between Lucera and Gumiho? Was that Lucera Gumiho or?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
That was the one.
Fucking cool.
Oh, you got me all excited now.
That game was the fucking coolest game of the year. Oh my god.
That was the coolest series. I had to take a taxi home after that. It was so late.
Oh man, I just thought about it. Yeah, that was amazing.
Wow. Oh my god, epic rematch. I can't wait. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, before we get into the Dreamhack stuff, which is what I really want to hit on, and the actual talk about the actual cool strats that we saw there, going to jump to just a really quick commercial so everyone can pee and stuff like that. And I think we're going to do a little preview of the world premiere of a commercial Nick and I made. So guys, we're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere. Pros always want to have gear that's exactly fitted to their needs.
Something I've always dreamed about doing is using my experience as a gamer to make gear for people like me.
We're working with TT Esports to make the exact mouse, keyboard, and headset that we've always wanted to use.
When you're doing anything that you love to do, the tools that you're using matter the most.
We're designing these products from scratch to make sure that your gaming experience is completely seamless. The gear I use to play the game
are the tools I use to win.